Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now I have to bring in my amiable co-anchor, Mr. Steve Ayoride. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Shaitan. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, wow, how time flies. I will make it straight to introduce our esteemed guest, Hadiza Usman, President Bola Tinubu's Special Advisor on Policy Coordination and a former Managing Director of Nigerian Ports Authority. Good morning. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
All right. And congratulations, Special Advisor on Policy Coordination.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll get to talk a lot about what that entails. I know that you're swearing in, right? It's still coming up like in a matter of days. But it looks to me like that has put a stop to your book tour.
Yes, actually.
On your book, Stepping on Toes, My Odyssey at the Nigerian Ports Authority, 196 pages. Whose toes did you step on?
I think it's all detailed there, and it's evident from the way I was suspended and my eventual exit. There is a lot of, I'll say, orchestration around how it was done, what it meant, and I think that's why I felt it was important to put it down in a book, and also to title it Stepping on Toes, because indeed there are a lot of big toes that felt they couldn't be stepped on in the maritime sector. And some of the things I did was perceived by them to be encroaching on what they felt has been naturally theirs, challenging some of their wrongful contractual obligations that they had, and also conniving with the larger space to see how we can edge this person out of the Ports Authority.
I've read a bit about the book, and I know that, yes, you mentioned stuff about Intel, and of course when we say Intel, we're talking about article. I know that you mentioned stuff about BUA, but a lot of people would think that this is about the issues that you had with the former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi. Is this essential about him?
Absolutely not. If you read the book, you'll see it talks about my journey into Nigerian ports and what I did there, highlighting some of the clear reforms that were done. And I also speak about my lessons learned in public service and on how to guide people coming to the service. So really, it's not about one individual, but about the journey. And if indeed you feature in the journey, you'd be mentioned. So definitely there are a lot of actors that have been mentioned, which would include himself. But it's really more about sharing my story, and also encouraging other people to share their stories. Because some of the challenges that are obtainable in a public service are things that people should be aware of, and are things that people should know. And in my own case, there's also the issue of maligning of character, which spoke to how I was suspended, the process with which I was suspended, the panel that was constituted, the main thrust of the allegation around non-remittance of 165 billion that was determined not to have been remitted, and a number of clear allegations that were made around financial misappropriation that was not, they were not able to validate them after 8 months of an investigation. So I felt it was important for me to set the record straight for Nigerians to know what happened, how it happened, and the outcome of this investigation. The fact that the Federal Ministry of Transportation never submitted the report of the panel, but so kindly Mr. President, then the former president, directed that all the infractions that were determined from the panel should be sent to me, and that is contained in this book, which details exactly what infractions they established. And the as I mentioned, the core to it, which is the non-remittance, was conspicuously absent in the alleged query or infractions that were done. So it was evident that some of these things are clear. And you talked about Intels, and you mentioned a few companies. I felt it was imperative to detail what relationship, while I was Nigerian Ports Authority, obtained with this company and other topical companies. One of the, I'll say, main drivers of the agitation by the former minister was around an extension of expired contracts. So it's quite interesting where...
That took a whole chapter.
Yes, it did. So some of those things are clear when you have a contractor that has been providing a service to a government agency from 1997 to 2020, and the contract expires by exclusion of time. And the minister just says, oh, just extend it. And I couldn't comprehend why you think it's appropriate not to subject this project to a public tender process. If this company is so qualified, why is it afraid of participating in a public tender process? Why are you so gung-ho on extending expired contracts? Not just the one, there's another one also which is stipulated in the book, where you have a contractor for 12 years and the contract expired, and you just say extend it, not subjecting it to a public tender process, which is a violation of our procurement process. So when such directives are given to you and you do not do them, and it's construed to be disrespectful or construed to be insubordination. So am I subordinate to you, or am I subordinate to legislative provisions that guide governance? So insubordination to a person, or insubordination to the Nigerian people, to the Nigerian economy, to what it is that is in Nigeria's best interest.
Thank you so much for setting the tone, of this conversation. And from what I'm getting, it's not just about stepping on toes. It's about clearing the air about what happened exactly. And at your reading, your book reading, you did say that you faulted government officials for not being transparent with their activities in office, and you also added that secrecy in government, of course, enables people to get away with certain things. So I want to kind of turn the attention of this interview to transparency and accountability in playing a vital role in policy coordination and governance. Now, this is a very, very, very interesting. I was just reading a few things on it as you were talking. I want to know how you're going to bring that into your new role, especially when it comes to policy implementation. There's already a trust deficit between the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people. So how are you going to help reduce that gap?
Yeah, I'm a believer of demystification of governance, meaning shedding light and transparency and accountability. And I think this is one of the things that I mentioned about in the book, where a lot of people disagree with sort of shedding light. They like the opacity of government, where people are not do not have full knowledge of what is going on. So I'm a strong believer in that, which is why while I was in Nigerian Ports Authority, I was keen to shed light and clarity on whatever it is that is going on. And when you take that into my new role, this is more about coordination of policies, ensuring that there's synergy, ensuring that there's clarity on what the government intends to do and the linkages with all the other areas. So one policy is not a standalone policy. It has the attendant linkages with other sectoral policies, and those have to be addressed and have to be linked to maximize the benefit and to ensure one is not subjugated to the other, or one is not overriding the other. So that's really one of the things that the policy coordination role would have. And yes, my experience would definitely play a huge role, because sitting in the role that I had in the Nigerian Ports Authority for 5 years, and also while I was in Kaduna as Chief of Staff, which is a subnational assignment, it has given me a very, I'll say, I've been able to have a bird's eye view on how lack of coordination of policies hinders growth and hinders development. So I had seen errors and different examples of that, which is why we felt in this administration there's a need to have that synergy, which would give us the leap and bounds we need to achieve when delivering on our mandate.
All right, I will come back to that so that you can expand, your thoughts on on how all this will work. But then going back to your book and the things that you detailed, a lot of people will submit that you were somehow close to President Muhammadu Buhari, and that the way that it turned out that you were treated was a bit surprising. There were few governors that you were also close to, and who I believe did intervene on your behalf. What was really the problem with the former minister?
I wouldn't know. I think he says he's writing a book, so he may mention what he felt was a problem. I've detailed my own understanding of what he had told me. It's there as to the reason why he wanted me to leave and the actions that he took. He said that to me directly, and I've specified it. And yes,
it wasn't about the birthday gift.
I think he would he says he would expatiate on the birthday gift and every other thing in his book. So we all look forward to seeing what he's going to say.
The designer bag, yes, and all those.
Exactly. So for me, I have said my own bit. I've explained what transpired. I've detailed it. And everyone else is free to give their own perspective and opinions of what happened. And yes, I'm quite close to a lot of the APC governors, because I've been part of the political space in Nigeria for quite a while in setting up APC and in a lot of our electoral and political processes. So yes, the governors did intervene, and I've also mentioned his response to the governors when they intervened with him. And President Buhari is someone that always doesn't want to be seen to be favoring anyone, or doesn't want to be seen to be standing in the way of what he believes is a procedure as it relates to an issue of misappropriation of funds, which is why the minister, having tried on 2 occasions to the president, have me removed, and the president declined his request, he now decided to submit an issue of an allegation of financial misappropriation. And that is something that the president, knowing his character, would definitely say, oh, you know, I can't intervene. It doesn't matter how close I am to Hadiza. If she's said to have done something, she should go through the process of being investigated. So this is something that the president will do. And then, yes, fast forward the outcome of the panel, the infractions that were listed, they sent to me for me to respond. I detailed my response on all the errors, which, as I mentioned, is in the book. So I'm curious as to what they gave the president. So could it be my response was what was given to him? Could it be definitely a review of my response, which showed that everything I responded to has no validity, all my claims or my explanations were not justifiable? So I'll be curious to see what was communicated back to the president with my response, on which basis the president appointed another CEO. There's also, in the announcement of the new CEO's position, they mentioned that he was appointed due to an increase in revenue, without reference to the fact that the previous person was actually suspended for infraction. So you were appointed not because the infractions were validated, but because you increased revenue in the 8 months. So it was quite an interesting mix. And I always find it laughable that you allege financial misappropriation, and then you have the executive director of finance being now acting. So if there is any financial misappropriation, it will be very, as some of you that are familiar with governance or really financial management, very difficult that the executive director of finance and admin will not be knowledgeable or not be in the mix of whatever appropriation was alleged to have been done. But I think it was his way of sort of instituting or putting his own cronies into the position of chief executive of Nigerian Ports, and it is what it is.
I mean, policy coordination requires collaboration across government ministries, departments, and agencies. And now that you're stepping into that role, are you a bit concerned that maybe it might hinder, you know, foster interagency collaboration and maybe promoting this culture of cooperation to enhance policy effectiveness and addressing complex issues as we need to? Do you think that maybe...
No, absolutely, that's core to it. So when you say you're coordinating policies, the policies actually sit with the MDAs, so the departments and agencies of government are where policies are implemented. And when you're trying to do a coordination, which would mean ensuring that agencies of government all work together with the understanding that there's a one policy trust we're trying to achieve, and all of us must speak in that language, and we must harmonize our positions to maximize service delivery. We don't want a case where one policy is actually counter the other policy, and at the end of the day, with those two policies being at loggerheads, nothing is achieved.
All right, so how will you navigate your new role in the public sector, given what you went through at the NPA? I know that you're coming with enormous experience from BP to the FCT, of course, to Chief of Staff in Kaduna State, and then NPA. But a lot of people will say that part of the problem that we have, one will be about policy implementation and coordination. But then people will say that policies and laws are always there. It is the implementation. How will your office, what role will you be specifically playing, given the fact that this is an APC government taking over from an APC government, but we can see from the body language and even from what the new president is saying that certain things were not done rightly. I mean, the president said in Paris, just I think yesterday or 2 days ago, about how the CBN governor and his policies messed up the financial space for Nigeria. You will be advising the president. How will you navigate it so that we can have better coordination as far as policies are concerned?
I think like governance is a continuum, irrespective of whether it's the same political party. So government and governance is a continuum. Is as you go along, you would adjust your own method of implementing certain policies, and also even adjust the policies in line with what your own vision is in actualizing those reforms. So yes, there would be a need to look at what was done and to enhance it. So it's, as I said, it's a continuum, it's a work in progress, and there will definitely be areas where there will be adjustment and reviews. There will definitely be other areas where we just proceed with it as it was met. But indeed, what is required for coordination is to ensure that all ministries and departments, agencies of government on particular policy positions are all in sync. So there's no contrary position. Because a lot of times you see conflicting policies. So agencies have conflicting policies on a particular area. Some of the examples I remember, this is while I was in Kaduna, we were trying to increase and promote dairy farming. And at that time, there was a policy that was promoted with the reduction in import duties on dairy products. So that automatically affected those investment in dairy farming. So these are some of the things. This was way in 2016. I don't know what the current state is, but I remember while I was in chief of staff in Kaduna, we faced that challenge, and we couldn't comprehend how the government was trying to promote dairy farming across the northern region, and at the same time, it reduced the import duty tariff on dairy products. So automatically, the country will be flooded with cheap dairy products that will not allow for the dairy farmers to sort of break even on their investment. So this is just a little example of some of the issues that could obtain. As I said, this dairy example was in 2016. I really don't know what's obtainable now. Probably it's been adjusted. So there are many such policies that are thrown into the mix without understanding the attendant effects it has in delivering on some other clear areas of initiatives that have been pushed by a government.
You've spoken about being in sync, and I want to highlight, the proposed merger of the Nigerian Customs Service, of NIMASA, and of course FIRS. Now there's a lot of controversy that has trailed that announcement, because we have the faction that is all for it, and we have people that believe that it should not even be discussed at all. So I want to know what your thoughts are on it, and if it's something that is, this proposal goes forward, what policy measures do you intend to put in place to spearhead or to facilitate this measure to ensure a seamless integration of these agencies while maintaining their core mandates, of course?
The Policy Advisory Council did a review and determined that is a recommendation. To what extent that recommendation will be implemented is left to be seen. But of course, there will be additional sort of to look at the modalities of implementation. And this document, was it formally presented, or was it a document that was just leaked out? Did this administration formally present this as the sort of a reform that it intends to embark on? So we need to also be mindful about taking maybe a leaked document or a document that wasn't formally presented and owning it and asking us to comment on it. But yes, the Advisory Council has that as a document. Will it be a document that would be implemented in its totality? That's something that is work in progress and will be determined, I believe, within the next few months as to the mode of any such, and indeed if that would happen.
Okay, talking about policies and coordination, you grew up in an academic environment in Zaria and everything. Your dad, was also an academic, I believe. How will you, given your background, look at a key policy of the Tinubu administration, which is the student loan scheme? ASU is up in arms against it. Many people are saying that it might look like it is for the poor, but it is actually, they think, anti-poor. This is an area that is also of interest to you. What sort of advice will you be giving the president in terms of implementation?
As you mentioned, I'm from the academic background, so I'm a strong believer in promoting and ensuring that universities function effectively. The base of which I am where I am because I was brought up in a university community and university environment, so education is key. The provision of the student loan scheme, if people look at it as the fact that it's not meant for the poor, well, it's meant for someone, and someone would benefit. Yeah, it may need not to be the poor, but the Nigerians, there are a whole huge bracket of Nigerians that will benefit from that, and that is what matters. So narrowing it down to whether this is the beneficiary or not, but the trust is a whole millions of Nigerian students will benefit from that. If you do not fit into the category of the bracket that will benefit, that doesn't mean there aren't other Nigerians that will benefit with that. And most importantly is to avail people the opportunities, people the access to determine the route they want to follow in getting educated. If you look at the student loan scheme to determine that is your route, you pick that route. If you believe your parents have the capacity to pay for you, that is your route. So what is important is ensuring that there are options, and those options are options that are functional options, and they're able to deliver on what it is you need to do. You need to be educated, you're struggling to find how to fund it. This is an option for you. And I think we need to sort of understand the need to open up the space and have various opportunities for people to embark on whatever it is they intend to do. And I support the student loan scheme, and we look forward to seeing its implementation, because a lot of things when we start up legislations, policy positions, when we get implementation, we may see a little areas where we need to adjust here and there to accommodate the realities on ground when it comes to implementation. These are the things that we would see, but I'm hopeful, and I believe that it would add value to our education system.
Precisely. Have you read the law, though?
No, I haven't read it, but I've had presentations on it before the president signed it. During the campaign, we had looked at the documents, we had reviewed it, and it's interesting, I was in the US during the campaign and I bought a book on the challenges of the student loan scheme in the US, and I shared it with a few of my colleagues that were working on the campaign documents, just to enable us see
holistic.
The challenges that they are facing in the US on student loan, to make sure that we don't fall into that pitfall. But identifying challenges doesn't mean that there are no benefits. So there are attendant benefits, and whatever gaps exist as we implement, we would adjust them. And whatever challenges they've had in areas they've implemented, we would work to adjust those.
Another thing that is on top of mind for a lot of Nigerians, and we're talking about vulnerable being affected. This one, everybody has been affected, is fuel subsidy, and it's everybody's talking about it. Now, the removal of fuel subsidy, of course, had a significant impact on the Nigerian populace, but particularly the most vulnerable. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth as to how to handle it. There's a social scheme that has been set up. There's been a push for the $800 million loan that has been received from the World Bank, and there have been even calls from the NLC and TUC to increase their allowance, their minimum wage. But what I want to know is, how do you intend to leverage your role, of course, as the special advisor on policy coordination, to mitigate these adverse effects? Like he would say, what advice would you give the president? Because this is affecting us directly. How do we move forward from where we are and get to where we need to be?
I'm sure you would have seen that Mr. President has directed the National Economic Council, chaired by the Vice President, to formulate the policies that are needed to mitigate the impact of the fuel subsidy. So the Economic Council, as you know, sits with the governors and the Vice President, the Nigerian Governors Forum, and that committee, the council, is going to brainstorm to determine what would be done, what sort of mitigants will be provided for Nigerians, and we look forward to seeing, the Nigerians will look forward to seeing. In my role, I would definitely be in there to see that whatever policy positions are being proposed by the Economic Council are policy provisions that are in sync with other existing mitigants against any increase in tariffs everywhere. So I think Nigerians should await to see what the outcome of that deliberation. And because it's the Economic Council, you'll see you have representation across the whole country. So the governor of Yobe is there, the governor of Akwa Ibom is there across the whole country. So everybody would be able to bring to the table what it is that locally affects their people and what sort of mitigants their own people would look at as being favorable based on our geopolitical space, based on the local context of how this would affect the people. So Mr. President was very right in putting National Economic Council as the lead in bringing up these policies to mitigate the subsidy removal.
Okay, so while they are talking, discussing and thinking of what to do to mitigate the impact, for how long do you think that Nigerians should suffer while they are waiting?
Well, I'm not sure about it's suffering. Like I don't consider it suffering.
It is suffering.
I consider it the reality of what we are in Nigeria.
You don't
it's
think
like
that Nigerians are suffering as a
Nigerians
result
would
of the policy?
suffer, but that policy is the reality of what we are. We've been living in a pipe dream, thinking that it makes sense for us to have fuel at a certain price, which is not the actual cost.
Yeah.
So we have been subsidizing other countries. We have seen that the so-called volume of consumption has tremendously dropped.
Well, how is that the fault of the masses?
No, the fault of them is not about it's not about fault. It's about understanding the reality. Your country produces this and buys this at so amount. So you need to know that is the reality. Your government cannot continue subsidizing, claiming to be subsidizing you when it's actually not subsidizing you. So the perception that you're being subsidized is actually even wrong.
They were subsidizing the masses.
Yeah, no. So that
because
is why
if you were buying fuel
so that is why. So that is why
different from
the
at
government.
585.
Absolutely, that's why the government is providing mitigants. So the issue of the subsidy,
where are they?
The mitigants would come. So it's more like, when would Economic Council sit and bring it up? But the fact that that differential in cost of petroleum products for Nigerians this is the reality of petroleum product for us. So we need to accept it for what it is and look at the mitigants. At what point will the mitigants be available to Nigerians? That is what we should do. Focus on that, the timing, and see how effective it is.
If it turns out that the majority of Nigerians will not be able to cope, because there are 130 million poor people, multi-dimensional poor people already.
Will not be
Many can't just afford it. Well, what will be your advice
so the issue
when
is not
you
about
go into cabinet?
Many cannot afford it. There are many things many people cannot afford. So people cannot afford to have 5 cars. People cannot afford to have 3 cars.
I'm not talking about those who
I'm saying that people cannot
cars.
randomly get 1 million and buy a Golf and just be going on the road.
So I'm not talking about such people.
So that would cascade down to the people you're talking about. A lady selling akara, the price of akara would go up. Yes. So but what I mean is that cost that the lady that is selling akara has an attendant, so she would also sell her akara at a higher rate.
It sounds to me like your message would be that you just have to learn to cope.
No. The mitigants will be provided. Learn to cope is the reality. We would learn to cope, and mitigants will be provided through the National Economic Council. So, but the idea that some people are going to suffer, so we keep the subsidy, no. Subsidy has to go.
But there's already...
And then the mitigants need to be done in a timely manner so that it's brought down effectively. But what is the volume of mitigants that would cover a space of 200 million people? We have to face that reality to realize that how much can that mitigant create a buffer? There would be a buffer to the poorest of the poor. We've done, in the last 8 years, worked on social investment scheme. We have a database of the poorest of the poor, quote unquote, that was done. Who are those poorest of the poor? The volume, is it a drop in an ocean? Considering the volume of the poor people we have, what we're doing, is it a drop in the ocean? How effective is this conditional cash transfer? Is this what would eventually provide the succor needed? Do we keep giving people 5,000 naira? This X number people that have been developed by a database that we don't know how it was brought about. So these are the things that need to be done. But by and large, at the end of the day, is that people would have to cope. Everybody is going to have to adjust, including the people with the 10 convoy.
How is the government coping?
The people with 10 convoy will convoy and the people walking.
Into all this?
Speaking about adjustments. Because I mean,
so when you ask about what is that, when it is, what is that, what the government is going to do something, when will it roll it out? That is the question. And it will roll it out.
I'm also talking about,
for example, now this 114%
Exactly.
increase that came
Yes.
at such a time where a lot of Nigerians
As a
are trying
proposal.
as a proposal.
Yes.
You know, they've, you know, even the data like has come out to say that no, this is not something that we're aware of. It's you know, people are trying to stir up the polity. But the fact that we're even having that conversation, the fact that cost of governance is something that we've spoken about over and over again. We've spoken about a lot of things being shrouded in secrecy. Till now, a lot of people don't even know exactly how much a lot of people that are in government, you know, positions and government parastatals make. So when you're looking at that, you're comparing it to people that can't even afford to buy the necessary things, and then they have to deal with fuel subsidy.
Why are we talking about an increase in salary that has been debunked? The president said he hasn't approved it. So it's a known, it's like a non-issue.
No, but we're talking about making an adjustment.
It wasn't debunked.
It was debunked because
No.
it's a proposal that has been sent to him.
Yeah.
He hasn't considered it to approve it.
Ramfak has done his job as it's allowed by law.
Yes.
So it
when
wasn't
you read,
debunked, it was a clarification.
it was debunked. The report was that President Tinubu has approved, and that was debunked.
Well, maybe on social media.
No,
maybe on social media.
The official,
but
the official narrative was that the president has approved the increase in salary.
Official narrative by who?
So the response
From Ramfak?
No. Ramfak never said President Tinubu had approved. Ramfak said
Nobody
we
ever
have
said
made
nobody
recommendation.
It was a recommendation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
nobody of note ever said Tinubu has approved.
So why did it elicit a response to say it was not?
Why
is Dele Alake saying it was not if it was not reported that it was?
So who reported it?
I don't
Did
know.
you read that?
So you just
I'm
raised
saying
it
that
with
nobody reported that in the serious media.
So that recommendation
that
was done was, if you had read, they said there was no recommendation from 2007.
Yes.
So if they made a recommendation, so do we go in arms about a recommendation that hasn't been considered?
The fact that it's even coming up at all, and the
people are
fact that
engaging with it.
So in the same way, people should be engaging with what NEC is doing. So if Ramfak is bringing up a recommendation for that cluster of public servants, NEC is creating another cluster of mitigants sitting with people that are seen to be vulnerable groups.
But they have not said anything yet.
They haven't said anything yet.
Yes.
So it's the same thing that
if they have not said anything.
No, so which is why when I mentioned to you, I said we should look about the when. We should get Economic Council to work on it and bring it up.
Which
but
was,
for us to say that
we should not, while we're waiting for that, people are suffering.
No, people would suffer. That's what I'm saying. That's the reality. Yes. People suffer in the course of governance. People suffer when reforms are implemented. No.
For how long?
For up until when we adjust what it is that we need to do, face our reality. So when we feel that, no policy should be done that would make people suffer. I mean, that's even laughable to bring it up. What we need to do is to ensure that there are mitigants to prevent that, ensure that we put in place what is needed. And as I keep repeating, it's for us to say, when will those mitigants come? We cannot keep it open-ended. NEC, you need to get on this assignment and get it delivered.
Is the key, is safety and welfare of the people are the key reasons why governments are there.
Security as well.
That's why I said safety. Safety. So a lot of people will have thought that government will have first provided those mitigants clearly before going into what will clearly lead more people into poverty and into suffering. But here you are saying that yes, they will need to suffer and need to learn how to deal with it.
We would all need to learn to adjust our lifestyle.
So I'm saying that how is government
adjusting their lifestyle?
How is government adjusting its own lifestyle?
Its lifestyle by reducing the number of people that are parading everywhere. So government is not increasing its own cost of governance. Government is going to decrease. And while we're at it, let's remember that President Tinubu has been in office from May 29 to date. So the process of reducing cost and governance is what he's working on now. And the issue of removing mitigants for fuel subsidy has been given to NEC, and they'll provide that. So for us to calibrate and keep referencing, we haven't done anything, nothing has been done, nothing has been done. If you've ever worked in government, you'll know that it's not something that you do in a week. It's not something that you do like yesterday to say, I'm deploying $800 million to Nigerians to mitigate the subsidy. And for us to keep pretending that we're keeping the subsidy because we haven't put in mitigants is just a way to keep on subsidizing other people. This subsidy money is going to other people's pockets. Neighboring countries are benefiting from it. So under no guise can we justify that using the fact that...
That's self-indicting on the government.
Well,
if the subsidy money is going to neighboring countries, that's the government is indicting itself.
So nobody has said the government is not indicted.
Man the border. It is not Shaitan's job to man the border.
No, it's not about that. It's beyond the borders. It's that let us accept the reality of what it costs for us. Why is Nigeria subsidizing? Is that what is obtainable in all oil-producing countries?
All other oil-producing countries have functionary refineries.
So we're in trying to get refineries functional, we should continue subsidizing petrol products that are going into someone else's pocket. So I find this laughable because every other, I think, political party has removal of subsidy except NNPP. So why are we pretending to come up in arms about fuel subsidy removals that President Buhari, outgoing president, removed it in July? Labour Party, remove. PDP, remove. APC, remove. And APC is implementing what all the political parties have said.
Labour Party and PDP said that they
so
would have removed, but they would not have removed
but they would have
in this
forcefully
manner.
removed.
Yeah, so it's not even forcefully because the budget for the Nigerian budget doesn't have provision for subsidy removal up until July.
So why did we remove it in May?
No, we have to so that that is reality.
But there's a budget provision for it till the end of June.
Yeah.
So why did we remove it in May?
So let us use that. To me, it's it's even, I find like so funny when people are hinging this issue of subsidy removal when it's like a goner
because the
for everybody.
The 1 month will have given the new government some time to plan.
The new government is okay to do it. We don't need that 1 month. We feel it's fine. Yes.
Even against the provisions of the budget?
Well, yes. We're okay with it. We think it's the right thing to do.
Even the president
because
said it himself that we need to let the poor breathe. There has to be a certain
and those certain things are going to be done through NEC. But everybody is like, oh no, nothing's been done. You guys haven't done anything.
Very quickly,
he's been president from 29th of May.
Seriously, because you have the ear of the president. I think at this point, it's just really important to note that even though this recommendation has come up and it has been pushed back, now the fact that we're even having that conversation about the cost of governance is something that we need to look at because everybody is making an adjustment. The current administration also has to make an adjustment.
So even before we came into power, cost of governance is a major trust in our policy documents. So we're very aware of that. So the idea of it's not even about increasing the salary, it's about trimming down governance in totality before you even come to the issue of salary. So for us, it's giving that cost of governance will be reduced. The modality with which it will be implemented is what we need to get down to do. So reduction in cost of governance, ensuring that there are mitigants against removal of fuel subsidy will be provided. But then these actions have to be taken. It's in the larger interest of Nigeria and Nigerians.
All right,
Hadiza,
so special advisor
They've been telling us to leave for about 5 minutes, but this was a very, very
policy
good
coordination. We want to thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
We will have to learn how to cope with all these things. You told us that so far. Cope. Learn to cope. Yes. We will. And again, congratulations on your book. And by the way, keep writing because you write very well.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll keep doing that. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Usman.